Today we're going to do a 2-page notebook spread all about the evidence for evolution. But before we get to the pages, we need to complete work on one section of it that we haven't talked much about in class, and that is homologous structures. Homologous structures are body parts of vertebrate animals that have very different jobs, but yet still have the same basic parts, meaning their bones are arranged in the same way. So for example, humans use their arms in really different ways than whales use their flippers or than bats use their wings, and yet all three of these, the human, the whale, and the bat, have the same basic bone structures in their front limbs. So that's what we call a homologous structure. So we have these little slips of paper up at the front. You need to grab one of those little white sheets, and it has on it the whale, the human, the bat, the bird, and the frog. And all 5 of these animals, and actually all vertebrate animals in general, follow this same pattern. And that pattern is they have a single bone at the top, and I colored in that bone in yellow in all 5 of my animals. And then that's going to be followed by 2 bones below it. And on my diagram, I colored that in red. Below those red bones, there are a series of small wrist bones, which are really hard to see in this tiny drawing, but they are there. I colored mine in blue. And lastly, there's a series of finger bones, which I colored green. So your completed sheet should look something like this. You don't have to use the same colors as me, just make sure that you're consistent. So for example, the finger bones have to be all the same color in all 5 of your animals. Okay? Now that we're done with that, we can start building the actual notebook pages. So if you want to open up your notebook, yours is going to look something like this. Our title is going to go right across the middle, Evidence for Evolution, or you can put it wherever you want. I just put mine in the middle. And then there are going to be 4 types of evolution that we're going to need to include, and I'll zoom in on each so you can see them a little bit better. The first section is embryos, and that is when we compare developing babies of vertebrate animals. And you can tape in that little tiny picture of those embryos, but please also include a description in your own words of what evidence this gives for evolution. And I included an empty box there that you can write that into. Your hint for this is that you should say something about common ancestors, and that's a hint on all 4 of these boxes that you need to complete. Okay? Second section is the one that we just completed a minute ago, and that's our homologous structure section. I have defined those here as the body parts in vertebrate animals that have different functions but the same arrangements of bones. Okay? So you can tape in the colored diagram that you just made, and then again, please also include your description of what evidence this gives for evolution in that orange box. Our third section is fossils, which I define as the remains of dead organisms preserved in rocks. And here you're going to tape in the cladogram of the whale fossils, which you should recognize those whales that you see in that and the characteristics there from our whale hippo fossil activity. And again, there's that orange box there where you need to write in what evidence fossils give for evolution. And then our last section, number 4, is DNA, which I have defined here as the instructions for how to make a living thing. And I've included here a graphic that you can tape in there that has a comparison of how similar the DNA of some other living things are to humans. So examples, a fly has 44% the same DNA and a chimp has 99%. So you can kind of take a look there at that graphic. And then in the box, include evidence, what evidence DNA gives for evolution. And that's it. So your completed sheets, your completed notebook pages should look something like this, except of course that your orange boxes will be filled in with your descriptions of what this evidence tells us. And that's it. Thanks, guys.